All right, shocking new details in the case against Justin Ross Harris, the Georgia man charged with felony murder in the death of his son, Cooper. The toddler was left in a hot car for 7 hours last month in what Harris claims was a tragic mistake. But prosecutors say Harris led a double life. They allege he sent explicit photos and texts to several women, including on the day his son died, and did internet searches on living child-free. At a hearing Thursday, the judge ruled Harris will stand trial. Our Victor Blackwell picks up the story from here.
What was Justin Ross Harris allegedly doing while his 22-month-old son, Cooper, suffered in the back of this scorching SUV?
He was having up to 6 different conversations with different women. The most common term would be sexting.
Stunning claims of raunchy text messages, suspicious internet searches, and a plan to kill his son.
Evidence is showing us right now that he's got this whole second life that he's living with alternate personalities and alternate personas.
Harris sat shackled and sullen as Detective Phil Stoddard with the Cobb County Police Department detailed X-rated messages allegedly exchanged the day Cooper died, including with a then 16-year-old girl.
Were photos being sent back and forth between these women and the defendant during this day while the child's out in the car?
Yes, there were photos of his exposed penis, erect penis being sent. There were also photos of women's breasts being sent back to him.
No visible reaction from the 33-year-old's wife, Leanna Harris, who sat with her family and supporters in the packed courtroom.
He was a loving father. He loved his son very much. We went on family vacations together, and he was a good dad.
But just 5 days before Cooper's death, Detective Stoddard says internet searches revealed that Harris watched videos online about the dangers of being trapped in a hot car, and that Harris visited a web forum devoted to the child-free lifestyle.
So you don't have any evidence that he actually typed in a Google search or a Reddit search or anything for child-free.
True.
We're getting so far afield from the events of June the 18th. This has got nothing to do with those events whatsoever. The status of his marriage and his fantasy life has got nothing to do with the events of June the 18th. We're just getting so far afield, Judge. This isn't relevant to anything.
Judge, this goes to his state of mind in the 2 weeks leading up to the death of this child.
So this occurred within 2 weeks?
Yes, Your Honor.
Overrule the objection.
The detective also testified the couple had financial problems and took out life insurance policies on Cooper.
They had 2 policies on Cooper. The first policy was a $2,000 policy through the Home Depot.
Now, the second one, was this something that they got back in 2013?
Yes, November 2012 is when he signed up for it.
Okay. And was this something that you still had at the time of the child's death?
That is correct.
And how much was the policy?
It was a $25,000 policy.
Stoddard laid out the strange way he saw Harris reacting the day Cooper died.
He started off trying to work himself up, and we're watching him on the camera as he's doing this, and he's walking around and he's rubbing his eyes, and he's, it looked like he's trying to hyperventilate himself. No tears, no, real emotion coming out of him except for, the huffing.
And through the time you're talking with him about his son and his son's death, did you ever see any tears coming from him?
No.
Even more bizarre, how witnesses say Leanna Harris reacted at the daycare when she was told that Cooper was never dropped off.
And in front of several witnesses, all of a sudden she states, Ross must have left him in the car. And they're like, what? There's no other reason. No other explanation, excuse me. Ross must have left him in the car. And they try to console her, and they're like, no, there's 1,000 reasons. There, he could have taken him to lunch or something. We don't know yet. And she's like, no.
Then another shocker.
Were there any injuries to the child's face?
There were.
And what were those?
The way it's explained, there were several marks on the child's face. It would have come from the child or a scratch being made while the child was alive, and then not healing, not scabbing over or anything like that, and just soon after he passed away.
Were there any injuries to the child back of the child's head?
Yes, there were abrasions to the back of the child's head.
After 3 hours of stunning testimony, Judge Frank Cox denied Harris bond, the defense maintaining
It's not criminal negligence. It's a horrible tragedy and an accident.
Victor Blackwell, CNN, Marietta, Georgia.
All right, let's bring back our legal guys, Avery Friedman, civil rights attorney and law professor in Cleveland, and Richard Herman, a New York criminal defense attorney and law professor in Las Vegas. All right, Avery, let me begin with you first. You know, Justin Ross Harris, I mean, this was a preliminary hearing, but it almost felt like a trial underway. I mean, his defense attorney was there, you know, objecting to a lot of the material that the prosecution was bringing up. But in your view, how did the defense do in terms of trying to justify where their client is at this point?
Well, the defense lawyer did everything he possibly could to try to neutralize it, with the exception, of course, of putting his client on, which would have been suicidal in terms of incriminating him. But the reality is, there wasn't very much he could do. To me, Frederica, the facts are so compelling here. The fact that when the daycare or child care facility was contacted and the mother found out, this is incredible. When you drop your child off, the facility's going to call you. Where's the mother in all this stuff? When they found out the child wasn't at the facility, what did he do? And what possible explanation is there for Mr. Harris not calling 911? I mean, all the evidence that surfaced at that probable cause hearing, to me, is so terribly compelling, I can't fathom what a sensible defense in this case would be.
And in fact, Richard, we heard the police officer talking about how the daycare workers heard Leanna, the wife, say, when they said the child wasn't there, that, you know, he must have left the baby in the car, and that was the response, as opposed to a host of other possibilities and that could have been entertained, like, hey, maybe, you know, he and the child are out to lunch. So, Richard, does that lay some groundwork in your view that potentially Leanna herself might be facing some charges, or that at least that suspicious kind of response opens the door to further investigating of her?
Well, the case is still being investigated, Fred, and she says that comment, he must have left the child in the car, that's coupled with her own internet searches about this, her statement to him when she saw him, did you say too much? And, you know, it's just her comments at the eulogy, which were just mind-blowing. I think she's going to be indicted next. I think she's going to come into this case. I think there's no spousal privilege here, so maybe she's going to cut a deal against the husband. I don't know, but I think she's got some liability here. I'll tell you, Fred, this district attorney has taken so much incoming from the community, and they put on an overwhelming case here for intentional murder. They didn't have to do that, Fred. These are bare bones probable cause hearings, and the DA put on an intentional murder case. This is a potential death penalty case, no bail for him. It's overwhelming. Avery, he got an email from the daycare center that day, and that didn't trip his memory that the child was in the car. The stench was overwhelming in the car.
Right, and that's what's so compelling. That's what's so terribly compelling here.
And
it was a horrific death, Fred. It was a horrible, painful death.
Yeah, and the markings on the child indicating the level of, you know, suffering that this child endured in that hot car, which also leads one to wonder, Avery, whether torture, a type of charge involving torture, might be involved here, particularly since some kind of internet search was done. We still don't know, you know, by whom exactly, but an internet search was done about the consequences of a child or animal being left in the hot car.
I mean, think about that. The idea of researching the question of how hot it has to be in order to kill a child in the car. I mean, it is mind-boggling. Every time you start thinking that you have faith in humanity, you see this sort of thing, and you wonder, how can human beings actually do something like this?
Right. We know 5 days before this, Fred, he viewed a video online about animals' torturous deaths in hot cars.
Right. Well, that's the point. That's the point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all hard to believe. All right, Richard, Avery, thanks so much, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Always love your brilliant legal minds.
Fred, what did you do to Joan Rivers, Fred? What did you do to
Clearly, I set her
I like that, Fred.
I know.
That was actually very cool.
I think she staged that. She staged that walkout, Fred.
You think
it wasn't
so?
You.
Okay, well, I've been wondering the points of view of a lot of people. Was that a stunt, or was that the real deal?
It was a stunt.
Okay. That's your thought on that. Well, you guys call it like you see it, huh? Well, thank you. I guess I'll get a no the next time I ask for an interview with her. That's my guess. All right, thanks so much. Avery, Richard, always good to see you. Thanks so much.